Healing isn't one moment. It's progress. Perspective. Learning what works for you. This is The Healing Side. Conversations about growth, mindset, and the journey toward a healthier, stronger life.
Welcome to the Healing Side podcast. I am your host, Donald Dunn. Welcome to the show. Today's guest is Toni LaMotta. After spending 16 years under a vow of obedience as a Catholic nun, Toni discovered a powerful truth. We all take invisible vows to expectations, perfectionism, and environments that shrink our voice. Now a doctor of religious studies, international Enneagram professional, and master quantum living coach, Toni helps people reclaim their inner authority and live with bold self-trust. Let's welcome Toni to the show.
Hey, how's it going, Toni? How you doing?
I'm doing real well. Glad to be here. Thanks, Donald.
Awesome. Well, why don't we dive right into it? Toni, you lived under a literal vow of obedience for 16 years. When did you first realize that obedience was no longer aligned with who you were becoming?
Well, there were a couple of instances that would happen. One time I remember it was grand silence, and grand silence meant you didn't even look at another person. And I heard someone crying. And, the little compassion in me, I walked over and I couldn't help but try to comfort her. And I remember waking up the next morning and remembering, oh, I didn't die. I broke a rule here. And it was quite an experience that made me, it was one experience like that made me stop and say, you know what, maybe I'm following this stuff too literally. And I'm taking this obedience too seriously. However, that didn't stop me from living that way, because I really thought it was kind of the right thing to do, to stop my own knowing and just listen to outside authority. I mean, that's what I was being trained, and I thought that was the holy thing to do.
Right.
So,
yeah. I can't even imagine. I have a lot of respect, for people that live as nuns and priests and that, because it takes the one thing that I wish so many more Americans had, and that's discipline. It really does. And I don't know that I could do it, but I do see it looking on the inside. What are some of the positives that you gained from that experience before you left?
Well, the whole experience was basically positive. I was, the community was called Divine Compassion.
Okay.
Just the word alone. One of the things I noticed, though, is that we almost didn't notice each other's charism because everybody was compassionate. And so when I left and I discovered that not everybody lived that way, it was a little startling in a way. But yeah. I spent the time, I guess the silence taught me to be a mystic. I had to learn to really communicate with somebody, and I really did. I am so grateful. Many people call themselves recovering Catholics. I will never use that term. There was nothing to recover from. It was a gift in my life. It was a wonderful time. It just became clear to me that it was no longer the proper thing for me to stay there. But it was not something that I look back and regret. Even the obedience part. I learned that times we do need to listen to outside authority. Yeah. And I learned at times that and as you said, the discipline was wonderful. And many of the things that I learned. So I'm grateful for that time. It's a long time ago. And it's only recently, I've been coaching people in general for years, but recently I put together what I'm calling the inner compass. And I stopped and said, why am I qualified to do that? And I started looking at everything I had been teaching and like, why am I always teaching people about listening? And then I remembered I laughed at myself. I said, because you didn't for so long. I wasn't quite aware of it in a way. And I never used to talk about my days in the convent. Coming out to all these podcasts has been very interesting because it's like coming out of the closet in a way and speaking. But I'm still looking back, and I do a lot of journaling about that time. It was very precious. I couldn't stay because I no longer could agree with everything the church was teaching, and it was hard to be a representative of something that I wasn't learning anymore, being, I couldn't be true to myself. So, and I believe, I don't know if you know much about integral theory, we transcend we grow in levels as adults. Adult learning theory is one of my things that I've studied, and we grow. And many people leave the past behind. And I think it's important to include the good that was there, but then transcend the parts that were no longer valuable. And I think that's what I've done. So.
Yeah, you are 100% correct. And when you said it that way, I do understand. I've never heard that title before, but I'm a big believer in you have to embrace the stuff that happened to you, because when you have to make decisions, in the future, and you've got to fall back on your life experiences, and that's how you learn from those mistakes. So you don't make the same mistake. You fall back onto that experience that you had. You pull the good lessons out of it, like you said, and you use them, and you let the rest of it go. That letting go part is where so many people struggle. I did. I'm now, now that I've started, finding a little bit of spirituality and adding that into a new chapter of my life, it has helped me quite a bit. Everything from meditation to just listening to other people's beliefs and taking from it what sounds right to me and what works, and just expecting the fact that everybody has to understand there is a higher power. I don't care what you call it, who it is, God, Allah, energy, spirit, whatever you want to call it. There is a higher purpose that you have to live. And that's the reason why it's one of the pillars of your life, is because it is important. Without it, you're going to stumble and life is going to be difficult.
Well, not only is there a higher power, but there's a higher purpose. And everything that happens in life, I read a quote somewhere, and I wish I could give credit to the person. I can't remember who first said it, but life is not happening to us. It's happening for us. So every single thing that has happened in our life and everything that's happening right now is a gift, if we can see it that way. It's an amazing way to live. I mean, I have really learned to practice that, and I teach that as well. Some of the programs I teach is look at when you're triggered, because when you're being triggered, it's showing you need healing. And it's showing you that something must have happened in your past that your body's holding on to. So rejoice. My students all laugh at me. I say, now when someone triggers me, instead of saying, oh, I stop and say, oh, good. Something good is about to happen here. And I really mean that. It's something that I take to heart all the time. I've been sharing this a bit because it's recent, but I recently fell. I tripped on a rug in the front of my house and broke my ankle in 4 places. And I was lying on the floor in more pain than I have ever experienced in my life. But a thought went through my mind, I wonder what the good here is. And I laughed at myself later, and I have found some good. I mean, I'm clearly healing right now. It's been amazing to me that no matter what happens, it's not an accident, even though that appeared to be one. So many things. And, I think you have a history that challenges. We all have challenges that we think were like, that's the worst thing that could have happened, or why did that happen? And I think we can ask, why did that happen? And ask it in a new way that says, what's the gift here? One of the courses that I'm in the middle of working with my clients right now, I do a hybrid of training as well as coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And we do something it's a journaling process where we look at areas of our life that want to speak to us now and say, what is my life trying to tell me? Just as you said before, everything has a meaning, everything has a purpose. And it's fascinating at times that things, like the convent is showing up a lot in my life lately. And I haven't really done all the journaling that I could on it, but I think there's more to it. And ferreted out, I learned so much about, wow, what that vow of obedience taught me. And it's not just me in a vow. I mean, everybody doesn't take vows, but I started to realize that everybody I work with has taken some kind of vow. And it might be a vow to, listen to what my parents want, or to do what my boss is telling me to do, or you mentioned in the intro of perfectionism. There's so many things that we've taken on and live from usually unconsciously.
This episode is brought to you by Barracks Media, where your online presence becomes a real asset. Barracks Media builds professional websites for podcasters, creators, authors, and small businesses who are ready to be taken seriously. Not templates, not cookie-cutter pages, real platforms built to grow with you. Whether you're launching a podcast, promoting a book, or building a brand, your website should work as hard as you do. We design sites that convert listeners into followers and followers into clients. Visit barracksmedia.com and turn your idea into a home on the web.
And becoming conscious of it is what makes life make a huge difference.
Yeah, you are correct. Things that happen, people like to use that word coincidence. And, I have learned to not believe in coincidences anymore. Everything happens for a reason. And it's just now lately, since I have started getting into spiritualism, that you have to listen to those. And it's hard. It's not always easy. And I had something happen to me last week. I probably had 6 different guests that made the comment in all sorts of different types of podcasts. They all said that failure isn't failure, it's an opportunity. And I'm like, man, is somebody trying to tell me something? We're here talking about, spiritualism and healing, and somebody still uses that phrase. And when that happens, you have to listen to it. And it's made me do some meditation on it and some thought on it. And I think I know where it's coming from. But journaling and meditation, they're all amazing habits to get into. They really are. Some of the best books wrote by veterans were from veterans that journaled during their time in the military. And I wish I would have done it, because as you get older, sometimes it gets harder to remember things. And their books are so much better than mine. I'll put it that way. But it's very relaxing. And I found when I wrote my book about my time that I wrote it from a place of looking at a person like I was the character now. And it allowed me to judge myself a little bit and understand what decisions I made, why they were wrong, and then forgive myself for doing it, all from writing that book. And I had no expectation that was going to happen. But I think that's what happens when we start writing. And so writing is definitely a great form of therapy. You don't have to publish it. That's not the point. The point is that you actually took the time to take the pen and put it to paper, and the thought process that goes behind it. So great advice.
Absolutely. And, part of the journaling that I work with is based on it's loosely based on a man named Ira Progoff. I don't know if you've ever heard that name, but the intensive journal is not just sitting down and recording what happened, but it's literally, well, one of the very first things we do is name the first 10 or 12 things that have been the major stepping stones of your life. Just that exercise alone, I have the audience that listening now, I'm suggesting everybody do this. Just spend time listing what are the major events of your life. And every time I've done that exercise, and by the way, I've done it maybe 10 times now in my life, it comes out different. And it's very interesting because it's telling me what's important. One time when I wrote it, I wrote all the different places I lived. And sure enough, I was about to move again. I didn't even realize it. But it's like your life is trying to tell you what it wants to become when you can listen to your life. And then you can go back, and I have people choose one period of their life and flesh it out. What were the decisions you made during that time? Because there may still be possibility. You know, there's a story of an old oak that was found, I don't know, it was an acorn that was found that was 6,000 years old. And they planted it and it became a tree eventually. So what it's saying is there's still a germ of possibility in every one of those seeds that we've had planted from the past. So it's like nothing is an accident. Every single thing that has happened still has potential. And Progoff used to say, what does my life wish to become? And I love that question. It's like, not what do I want, but like, what's calling me? What's happening? And whatever is happening, instead of fighting it and wishing it were different, it's trying to tell me something. And it's the way forward. If I can really face it and look at it and see it for what it is. I like using the word gift all the time. It's a gift. And the other piece, I can't resist talking about failure now that you brought that up again, just because I really believe, and you probably have heard this story, Edison tried to invent the light bulb 1,000 times. Yeah. And everybody kept saying he failed. No, he just found 1,000 ways that didn't work. And so I'm in a program now. I'm learning a lot about marketing, and we've learned that everything you test is not a failure. If nobody signs up for a course that you put out there, it's not a failure. It's just that didn't work. So now what do I need to do differently? And imagine going through life with compassion for ourselves instead of, I mean, you said you judged yourself. I'm going to suggest, Donald, erase that one. You don't need to judge anything. There have been no mistakes. Right. Even though we think the decision wasn't right, the decision was the best we could do at the time. Yep. And so it's a whole lot of compassion we need to have for ourselves. That's a big one.
I agree. And that would probably be the number two thing, besides letting things go. That would be the number two hardest thing for people to do. But, you know, with that being said, the interesting part was podcasting, you know, my second year of podcasting, it brought me in contact with a guy that owned a program called the Warrior's Way Mindset. It's a support group for men. And as we ended up, I had him on the show, and then we became friends, and he invited me into the course, and I went through that course. And you talk about life-changing, you know, it really was a very good course. It's not a nonprofit, but it is a very good course. And the part that I found to be the hardest part of it is something that I never expected. And he has a section called Know Yourself. And when you start that, you're going to think you know yourself. But I think everybody will agree that is the hardest part, is when you start peeling your layers back and truly understanding where your traumas and decision-making processes and everything comes from. You may like it, you may not like it, but that's where the reality of it is. And I think that's what leads, once you figure that stuff out, that's what leads to our decisions making before, or what we're going to rely on. And we do it subconsciously without even realizing it. So it is really cool to know a little bit about who you are, but then have the compassion to still love yourself when you make those mistakes. And that's where it becomes hard.
So you've left me a wonderful opening here, Donald, because you gave in my introduction that I am an Enneagram professional. And I don't know what you know about do you know the Enneagram?
I don't.
Well, I'll try to do a 2-minute version of it because that's almost impossible. I just studied for 14 months to get certified. So,
wow.
So that's, it's not trivial. It's both a psychological typing tool as well as a path for spirituality to learn to live in the presence and to live what we call a 3-centered life from the gut, the heart, and the head. And what the study teaches, and this is, by the way, it's not something new. This goes back to the ancient Greeks. Nobody quite knows where it got started, but the Enneagram has been around for centuries, and it's taught in every major religion and taught by people. Unfortunately, the internet caught on and it makes it look like a parlor game, and it's so much more than that. But every single person is one of 9 basic types. And then there's lots of variations among that. So 9 with 8 levels of health with each one. And, so it's not as simple as 9. But when you talk about know yourself, I'm going to recommend that everybody look up the Enneagram and look up my name. And I have a free course I teach on the Enneagram because I want everybody to know it and to understand your motivation. Why do I do what I do? For some people, it's because, and we do it because this is what we learned as children as a survival method. And every single person had some kind of trauma as a child. I mean, just being a child is a trauma.
Yeah.
In an adult world and you're too small to do anything, it's a trauma. So, but if you start looking at the 9 different types, show you the first piece. And most people, when they first hear it and they find their type, hate it. And just as you said, you're like, oh my God, that really is me. They kind of, for example, a type 2 are the most loving, caring, generous people who are out there taking care of the world. But the reason they're doing it is because they want to be loved. And all they're doing is like kind of manipulating and taking care of everybody else's needs in order for their own to be filled. And when they learn that about themselves, it's a horror. However, when you really study it, you start recognizing that the virtue behind it is unconditional love. And what they're here about is unconditional love. So it's not all bad, every single type. Like my type brings joy and enthusiasm. Can you tell? I mean, it just kind of, it's my natural personality and I'm grateful for it. And I see nothing but positive, which is lovely, except I avoid pain. And I have avoided looking at what could possibly go wrong. And that always gets me in trouble, And so there is a type that always looks for what could go wrong. And that's the type that I work with now because I'm learning from them so much. And when I want to know what could go wrong, I call my type 6 friends and say, tell me what I'm missing here. What am I not looking at? So the other thing it does is show us how we need each other. The more we learn who we are, the more, I remember when I first learned it and thought, oh my God, 9 lenses and I only see through one of them. I'm missing a lot of life, And then I realized, hey, I need everybody else. And that was, it's an awakening to recognize when I see the type that I used to have a difficulty with, I now appreciate what they're giving and what I was missing. So I just highly recommend the Enneagram. It's an amazing spiritual tool of self-knowing and real self-knowing. And it's never about fixing what's wrong. it's about acknowledging presence. So you see the quality that is really trying to come through.
Yeah.
It's powerful. It's powerful teaching.
This show is part of the Barracks Media Network, built by veterans, creators, and storytellers who believe stories change lives. Barracks Media produces podcasts, books, and digital content that amplify voices worth hearing. We help creators launch, grow, and monetize their message without losing their soul. If you've got a story in you, or a show in your head, go to barracksmedia.com and start building something that lasts.
Yeah, I would agree, because that's real similar about what that section I was just talking about was as well. It's not just about you to know yourself and say, oh, okay, now I know myself. It's now I know my characteristics, I know my things, and then I know when I do things why I'm doing it. For example, type 2 person, like what you're talking about, doing it out of love. Well, maybe when they're getting into a relationship or something, they do something, but now they're aware of why they did that. And they can prevent mistakes. They can prevent, maybe they can even embrace it. Maybe there was a good reason why they're doing it, but unless you know yourself, you're not going to be able to do it. So I am going to look up that Enneagram, like you're saying, and just see, because I am curious. I'm curious what kind of person I am,
Yeah, Donald, if you send me your email, I'll send you a link to the free course, because it's I forgot how long it is. It's like a little over an hour, and it'll teach you the basics and hopefully whet your appetite to want to know more. There's just so much more to know. But I think just even seeing that first piece is so helpful for people, and saying, oh my, me. I mean, I always thought my type's great. I love it. We see the positives, and I hadn't realized how often I just miss what I need to be looking at, and refuse to believe there's pain, and you get more pain when you refuse to look at pain. So it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. What did faith look like after you left the convert? Was it still there inside, or had it changed?
What did faith look like? That's an interesting question, because faith, to me, my relationship with God never changed. Even my dedication didn't change. I mean, I went in the convent because from the time I was probably 5 years old, I wanted to be a priest. And as you know, that's not a possibility for someone of my gender. So it was the best I could do at the time. So I never lost that contact, and I never lost that drive. And except I think that I was so naive that I thought only priests and nuns knew God and could be holy. I didn't even know there was a spiritual life outside. I mean, I was pretty naive, to say the least. And then when I recognized it, my faith really did change. And this is where integral theory is very helpful too. I moved from a structure and a discipline, kind of, you believe these things, to a more open and how do I describe it? An evolutionary idea of even Christianity. I now call myself an integral Christian. So I didn't lose the faith I had. I haven't lost the love for Jesus, for example. But I also include Buddha, and I followed a guru for a while in India. I went to India for 21 days on a retreat, and I never read the book, but there is a book entitled A Religion of One's Own. And I tell people about that all the time. It's like to me, being a mystic means you experience God, and you can't experience it under an umbrella. It has to be, the experience is different for every single person. And so so I didn't lose faith. I think I deepened it. And it's only in recent years that I met the divine feminine even, and discovered even a whole other way of looking at faith. And one of the things I also teach is about spirit guides. And I believe the angels and the saints and the ancestors are there to support us. And I mean, that wasn't something I ever believed in the past. So my beliefs are very different but my dedication and my commitment is not. That's remained the same.
I'm glad you said that, because I 100% agree with you. I am very analytical, so I do stay very grounded. I do believe in science and stuff, but I also do believe that you can't explain consciousness. You know, there's parts of the ocean that we can't get to and have never explored, and there's parts inside our body that we can't get to and have never explored, and consciousness is one of those things. And I do believe 100% that our conscious does have the ability to speak to guides and other spirits. And I don't know that I go 100% down the woo woo. There's things that people say out there that I don't necessarily agree with or believe, but I do believe that we pick our path and that we come to earth to learn different things. And I do believe that our spirits have been on earth before, and some of those traumas can even carry over into the lessons that we're learning now. No different than our parents' traumas can be pushed down onto us as well. And you mentioned that earlier, with a lot of times when you're doing work and healing, that some of those traumas that you didn't even know was trauma bubbles up and it shows its little face there. And you're like, oh well, I do know you, But yeah, 100%. I agree with you. I believe that meditation and spiritual guides. I do believe in God. I do believe in Jesus. And if you look at some of the other religions, look at how many other religions also mention Jesus in their religion. The Quran mentions Jesus. As and acknowledges him in this world. So 100. I believe 100% that we may not know the truth and the whole answer in our human minds here on earth, but our spirit and our conscious does know the truth and knows where we come from. It just doesn't let us know that, because then we're not going to learn the lessons that we're supposed to be learning while we're here. And the end result is to end up to being able to learn to love better and to have more compassion for others. And that's what those lessons are about. And so I do 100% agree with what you just said. So
Absolutely.
But yeah, I do agree.
Well, I think we only have a few minutes left, but I want to share a practice that I think that has helped me tremendously and could probably help your audience as well. I didn't make it up. I learned it through my studies of the Enneagram, and it's called the presence practice. And it's a form of meditation, but it's something that you can do multiple times a day in different forms. Normally, it's done in 7 minutes. So real simple, all right? The first 2 minutes is to become conscious of your breath and your sensations. It physically puts you in the present moment. The mind is off on its own all the time, and the heart can be in the past or the future, but the body is always present. So you start with the body and you get very conscious and just embody those sensations, feeling them for 2 minutes and just become conscious of them. And then you move, and you can set a timer or you can just kind of guess it's 2 minutes. You don't have to be precise. The next 2 minutes is in the heart. So once your body is totally present, it brings to mind all the things that you appreciate and you love and you want to cherish in your life, and the things that are important. So you open your heart, or your heart, I shouldn't even say you don't open your heart, it opens naturally. When you really get embodied, the next thing that happens is that your heart opens. And then the magical thing that happens is your head gets quiet. If you really do this practice well, after those 4 minutes, you're noticing the chatter rather than living in it. And so you get really quiet and you can start to hear vision and possibility. You see so much more that's possible and that's there in life when you allow that headspace to open. And then you stop and say, wait a minute, they all go together. And you can notice that your breath from your belly to your heart to your head back through, and all three are centered together. So you spend 1 minute being conscious of the centering of all three. That's a practice that I want the whole world to learn, because it has changed my life. It forces me now, whenever I get caught in doubt or worry or fear or all those other things that happen in our life, I simply say, where am I? Be here, be in your body, just remember. And suddenly everything shifts. It's been an amazing practice. So I practice it every morning for 7 minutes when I first wake up. It's the first thing. Now I have coffee first, and then I practice it. I'm being honest here. But
Yep.
it's an amazing, and many people talk about meditation and they have a hard time practicing it. 7 minutes anybody can find, and then you can do it. I find myself during the rest of the day, I do a snippet of it, or at least the body conscious, because it brings me back to the center. And living in the presence and the present moment is what every spiritual teacher tells you it's about.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wanted to share that one practice that, makes people's time listening to us worthwhile, hopefully.
Absolutely. Well, I'm hoping when you share your links and your website, I'm hoping a whole bunch of people go and check it out, because I know I'm going to. Where is it that if they'd like to get in contact, they can find you?
Well, thanks. Because the easiest way is look at my spelling of my name, ToniLamotta.com. And when they go on the website, when they sign up, if you sign up for my mailing list, I actually give people a free quiz to see how well they're listening to their voice. It's a very interesting little quiz. And then as a result, at the end of it, my email is drtony@ToniLaMotta.com. I love to have people talk with me about it. If they want to, share what they've discovered, a free consultation kind of. I just enjoy doing that. And if you stay on my mailing list, you'll hear about all the other things that I'm up to. But the easiest way to get started is to simply sign up on that list and be part of the growing community that's really sharing lots of wonderful, I think, an amazing experience of just knowing and loving ourselves.
Yeah.
As we talked about earlier.
Yeah, I think that's the end goal right there is not to criticize ourselves, let the negative stuff go away and let it go. We can't control everything. There is the reason why there's a higher power, and there is things that are out of our ability to control. And when those things are around, you have to be able to let them go. And so learning how to do that, learning how to love yourself, and learning how to take 7 minutes to help yourself is something that definitely everybody should be doing. So I will make sure that we get those links down there in the show notes for everybody to click on and head over there. I hope everybody goes over there. If you haven't tried meditation or haven't sat down and really analyzed who you are, reach out to Dr. Toni and get with her and see, give it a shot. And I promise you, it won't be a waste of time. I have just recently started myself. Meditation is great, and it allows you to get in touch with yourself and, spirit guides and everybody else that has been trying to tell you you're doing the wrong things. So make sure that you guys go over there and visit and have a good time. You all take care, be safe, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Healing Side, a podcast from the Barracks Media Network. Thanks to our guest for sharing their perspective, and thank you for listening. Find more conversations focused on growth and well-being across the Barracks Media Network. We'll see you next time.